I'm Dustin, welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. Heading into Week 11, only 3 weeks before the fantasy playoffs, so it is crunch time. This is a portion of my waiver wire list. If you want to see the full list, click on the link in the description. You can read my write-up on all of these guys as well. Plenty to talk about, plenty of running backs to talk about that I think are must-adds in all leagues. So all those teams out there that are desperate for some running backs, there are some people out there that can help you. First one, Kenneth Dixon. Only owned in 20% of leagues. I think he took a very big step forward in terms of maybe being the guy that ends up taking over as the guy to own in Baltimore. I still think Terrence West isn't going anywhere, but I do think Dixon could end up being the guy that gets the majority of the touches and has more value. He's looked better than West, but I don't think they're necessarily just going to throw the rookie in there. They're going to make him earn it a little bit, but he did look good. I do like Kenneth Dixon moving forward, only owning about 20% of leagues. CJ Prosise, I was shocked to see he's only owning about 40% of leagues. I thought heading into Week 10 with all the news about him getting more involved that people would pick him up in more leagues, but I guess the Thomas Rawls stuff with him coming back and then still the uncertainty with Michael, I mean, I get it, but Prosise has a legit chance to be the back to own out there. I think when Rawls comes back, I think the odd man out is going to be Christine Michael. So Prosise for now needs to be owned in all leagues. I think Rawls comes back this week, so I do think that makes him, worth an add in deeper leagues. But until we see how this shakes out, I think both those guys are worth owning in pretty much all leagues. Even Michael as well. Don't do anything crazy with Michael until we see what happens. But it's a mess. It's absolute mess. But Prosise, I think, will at least have value over the next couple of weeks. I don't think they're just going to throw Rawls in there. So, for now, I think Prosise is the guy to own in Seattle, at least for the next week or two. Rob Kelly with the Redskins. Looks like it's his job at this point. I mean, I still think Jones is the more talented overall big play guy runner, but, Kelly is definitely the safer, fall forward type running back that the Redskins are looking for. And he had a solid game. He's going to be a volume guy, but he's going to get the touches. He'll get the goal lines. He's definitely right there in the RB2 discussion at this point, mainly just because of volume. And the Redskins have looked pretty good. They're going to get some points on the board. So Kelly, absolute must-add in all leagues. James Starks, I put him in that same boat. The Green Bay running back situation has been a mess. Ty Montgomery owners, he finally gets running back eligibility in all leagues, and then he just kind of disappears. With Green Bay playing from behind, you would figure that Montgomery would be in there more often than Starks, but Starks was actually the guy back there on the passing downs as well. So, at this point, Starks looks like he's going to be the running back in Green Bay. He's going to be the one getting the goal lines on that offense. So Starks at this point, must add in all leagues. I talked about Rawls. Again, I think Rawls is a decent add in deeper leagues, only on 45% of leagues. I would say all leagues for Rawls, but it's just there's too much uncertainty. Prosise has been playing pretty well. So, I do think Rawls still has a very good chance of just taking over that job and doing what he did at the end of last year before he got hurt. But still, a little bit too many question marks to call him must-add in all leagues. Bilal Powell, another good game for him. They're going into their bye week 11, so I definitely don't think Powell's a must-add in all leagues. But again, like I've said about him all year, he gives you week-to-week flex appeal, and if Forte were to ever go down, Powell's going to be huge. So I think he needs to be owned in more than 45% of leagues. Wide receiver Rashard Matthews, I'm just going to keep talking about him until he's owned in more leagues. Only owned in 55% of leagues. The guy has just been a touchdown machine. He's been averaging a touchdown over the last 6 weeks. I mean, the Tennessee offense in general has just been very impressive lately. Lots of points to go around. Mariota's looked great. The running game's looked great. It's a very well-balanced offense, and Matthews has consistently been involved in finding the end zone. Cameron Meredith, only owned in 35% of leagues. Here's the deal. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey suspended 4 games. It's a tough blow for his owners. So who does that leave you? Cameron Meredith, Eddie Royal, with Jay Cutler throwing you the ball. Cutler, all he seems like he wanted to do was force the ball to Jeffrey. He's not looking to spread the ball around. With Jeffrey gone, out of the picture, it's going to force him to look at these other guys. Meredith is clearly the number one guy now. We'll see what happens, but Cutler, I actually think that offense might actually be better with Jeffrey out because it's going to force Cutler to look at other options, but Cutler's looked terrible. But Meredith, I think, could go back to what he was doing a few weeks ago. with Hoyer when he was getting all the targets. I do think Meredith is a must-add in all leagues at this point. He could have a good month with Jeffrey out. I mean, the targets are going to be there. We'll see what happens on that offense. Cutler's looked pretty awful. Got to look at in deeper leagues, Michael Floyd. All it took was a benching for him to get his act together, but he saw his targets, had some amazing catches, had over 100 yards. So Floyd might be back in the picture here. They do have Minnesota week 11, which is tough. J.J. Nelson had a pretty awful game, so I don't know what's going to happen in terms of who's going to move in and be the starter or whatever, but whoever starts, it looks like Floyd's trending back in the right direction. We all know what this guy can do. We all know what he did last year. He's on a contract year. He's going to want to end the year strong. I'm still a Floyd believer. Not calling him must-add in all leagues, though, but deeper leagues, he's definitely worth looking at. Eli Rogers for Pittsburgh. As of now, it looks like he is the number 2 guy out there. He's the one to own. He's been consistently involved each of the last 2 weeks. So I do like Eli Rogers in deeper leagues. I think he continues to be targeted. Devin Funchess is interesting on everyone's sleeper list coming into the year. All the preseason reports were hyping him up, and all the preseason reports were pushing Kelvin Benjamin down. But we all saw how that worked out once the season actually started. But Funchess has been getting things going a little bit as of late. I like his Week 11 matchup against New Orleans, so not a bad pickup and play or just an add in deeper leagues if you're looking for an upside receiver. Got to talk about Colin Kaepernick. 2 solid games in a row. What he can do with his legs really puts him on the fantasy radar. And at this point, I think from week to week, he needs to be right there on the border of the QB1 discussion. I don't think he's necessarily quite there just yet, but with a matchup against the Patriots week 11, they're going to ask him to do a lot again in that game, so I don't mind him as a pick-up and play streaming option if you're not liking your quarterback matchup. Tight end, Eric Ebron. He's coming off of his bye. Only owned in 60% of leagues. When he's been healthy this year, he's been very solid. Definitely a tight end 1. And at this point, there's, I'm sure, some teams out there that aren't liking their tight end that much. Ebron could be a very serviceable guy down the stretch if you're not liking your tight end. Still out there in 40% of leagues. Darius Green, still a lot of question marks around his usage. What's going to happen with him? I mean, they got Jesse James out there still, but Green is back. He played week 10. He had some targets, but here's the deal. I mean, we were so excited about him coming into the season on that offense, and for good reason. So it's time to put him back on the radar and definitely take a look at in deeper leagues. Then my pick up and play defense is going to be Oakland. They're coming off a bye. They're at home going up against Houston. That Houston offense has been pretty woeful at times. And Oakland, they haven't had any monster defensive games, but they've been pretty steady. So I think they have a high floor, and I do think they have a high ceiling as well this week. So I like them as a streaming defense. Again, click on the link in the description if you want to see my write-up and see the full list. If you got any questions, post them in the forums. Hopefully y'all are getting ready for the playoffs.